Hello again, everybody. It is time once again for another episode of Michael's Record Collection. I'm very excited to be rejoined. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Neal Morse. Neal, how you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to talk to you a little bit about this new project, Neal Morse and the Resonance, talking about
Yes.
No Hill for a Climber comes out November 8th on Inside Out Music. Very excited about that, listening to it the last few days. But I wanted to start out by asking you about something that I got to experience not too long ago. You went on a little mini tour of some coffee shops. I saw you at Hillcrest Coffee in Lakeland, Florida, a little acoustic show. How did that little tour go for you?
Oh, that's Lakeland. Right. Was that that was that little old house,
Yeah.
boxy old house.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a trip, man. I remember you now. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, man, I really enjoyed that. It was such a talk about a great adventure. I just kind of put it out there to my face and whoever that I was feeling to uh, get out and do some acoustic shows and give my testimony. And um, so yeah, I think it was Rebecca Delph. We have some good friends down there, the Delphs, and they knew of that coffee shop. And I don't think they got the people that own that place or the people that work there had any idea who I was. Right? They put me between the like that young singer songwriter guy who had some great ideas, but play hardly at all. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but his songs were really coming across. I thought he was really cool, and then the after me was really great too.
Yeah.
But I felt bad. The fans, my fans wanted to talk. It was this tiny little space, so if people are talking, you can't really hear the singer, and so it was just a little bit awkward. But I really felt the Lord in that night. The things I was saying, and it was. I'm not used to being on. I had the on a time crunch because there was somebody going on after me, and I'm a little bit not used to that. So,
Yeah.
but
Mr.
yeah, that
Morse,
whole
we
that
need we
whole
need the stage, Mr. Morse.
right. But
Yeah.
yeah, that whole thing was really really great. The whole run from start to finish was really special, and every night was totally unique.
Yeah. It was nice getting to see you do some of your singer-songwriter stuff that you probably don't get as much of a chance to get out and play that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun and freedom about it. I can just try things, and there's no set of band really to think about. So yeah, it's very free.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Neal Morse and the Resonance. This is you've probably had more debut albums than most artists.
Yeah, that's probably right.
So we got this new project you've put out. This you've always been incredibly active as a writer, as a musician. Why was the time right for another new project?
I needed the money. Actually, no, I'm kidding. Well, I didn't have anything going on in 2024, progressive rock wise. I had Late Bloomer, and I knew I was going to do some dates. This would have been when I first started thinking about what being a hill for a climber. It was at the end of near the end of 2023, and I was looking at 2024, and I didn't really know what I was going to be doing. At Chester Thompson backstage at Steve Hackett, Nashville, the Steve Hackett show. Of course, he was there because he and Steve had played together for so many years. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I drove away from that feeling like maybe I should do something with him, which we wound up doing something over the summer, which I'll talk about later. So there is a Chester Thompson and Neal Morse album coming.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, another debut. um, Thinking about what to do in 2024, and I was talking with my wife, and she said, why don't you try doing something with these awesome young guys that are around? We've sort of developed this circle of young musicians that are sort of around in our world. Philip Martin, we've known since he was a little boy because we're friends with his parents. and we've watched him develop. And he's been doing percussion at Morse Fest for the last 4 or 5 years, I think. And so, Philip, I knew was getting really, really good, and then Chris Riley is another young guy that we've known. He's been coming to church with us. He's been playing bass at church. And also, he's been coming to the Radiant School, which is when I have people come in person to the studio here for a week. And every time Chris would come, he came to like 5 in a row or something. Every year he would come. And when he would play what he had been working on, the whole place would just buzz. Everybody from all over the house and studio would come in there and go, What is that? Wow, that's amazing. Chris is really kind of left field, just expect the unexpected, Chris. That's why I recognized he was very good at soundscapes
Mm.
from the Radiant School. And so was hearing having some soundscapes, and it might have been partly because of the influence of listening to his music that had a lot of soundscapes in it. And I thought for the Joseph album, I wanted to have some of those. And so I asked Chris, who just lives 15 minutes from me, to come over and help me with it. I had such a good time. I mean, it was really fun. I don't know if you're hip to the soundscapes on the Joseph albums, but I think they exceed my. It was his idea to look for the people talking,
Oh yeah.
like when the guy goes, say right before argument thing. The thing is, all that we know is we're all gonna die. I never really done that very much on my albums. I felt like that was a different element that was put in, and part of it was the influence of Chris. So he was an obvious choice, and then was also an obvious choice. He's a great guitar player that we've known for about 10 years. Local guy, does a lot of local sessions, and a really cool to be around. And then Johnny Basaha, the singer, he's the only guy I didn't know beforehand. Um, we had together. I'd gotten together with the other guys and written and created the album actually. And here we deliver in mid-May, and it was towards the end of April. Yeah. It was towards the end of April, and we didn't have anybody that could hit the high notes. We didn't have a singer, and we've written all this stuff like just planning to have somebody that can bring it. We really wanted the end of No Hill to be in E. I remember Andre going, "Oh man, it needs to be No Hill for a Climber." That would be a G sharp. Da, da, that's an A. Da, so I knew, okay, that's way beyond anything I could do. Has a higher range than me, but he has more of a voice like spring. So anyway, a mutual friend gave me his number, and he came over and we got acquainted, and he sang a few high notes. I said, okay, man, here's the demos. Come over next week. And he sang all the parts on the album in 2 days.
Yeah, he sounds to me he has a little bit different tone, but he reminds me a lot of Nick DiVirgilio, the way he sings.
Yeah, I can see that. It is a tone, but certainly a similar range.
Mm-hmm.
And I need people like that, I feel like, because to really peak out a song, like Eric Gillette sings like the end almost every time. I might sing like most of the piece, but when it comes to the ending, we give it to Eric because he can hit those notes that'll just really bring it home.
Yeah. When you do the step up at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sorry, I missed Andre's last name. You broke up a little bit when you said his name. How do you say that?
Datian.
Adatian. Okay. And so these are all guys. What was it like for you to work? I mean, you've worked with some pretty big name people, and of course you've I've just been enjoying Flying Colors a lot recently, so I know those guys are very well known. But how is it different, or is it different, working with a bunch of guys who are not as well known? And do they try to do you have to like push them to not defer to you on things?
I didn't feel like I needed. I did like they were flowing there. Uh, I guess you'd have to ask them how they felt. I felt like it was a good flow. I mean, I was definitely the producer. I was definitely the veteran guy.
Mhm.
Um, I made a vision about, you know, whether the feel was right or whether it didn't feel right and whether we should recut it. You know, the thing that a producer does. Um, but it seemed to me like it was all very fun, and I think we got on great. I mean, it was some of the decisions that had to be made were like historically agreeable. Like the name of the band was just like everybody just went, "Yeah, okay, that's good. I like it." The artwork, oh yeah, love it. Is like they didn't give like any notes on the mixes. None of them. They were like, "Great, print it." I was like, most of the people that I work with, there's going to be at least one or two notes, if not volumes.
Yeah.
Some guys will send 5 pages of notes, and so I was just like, "Wow, this is amazing." It was there was things about it that were easier. There were some things about it that were a little harder. Honest, I want to paint a false picture. I felt like with them, I need, the Neal Morse band produces itself. We write the stuff together. Mike produces his drums, really. I might throw in a few suggestions here. But generally, if I wait till Mike's happy, I'm happy. So I just let him work. Jerry, the engineer, just work it out. And then, if there's something I really strongly about, I'll say something. But it is with that band. You can send the tapes home with everybody and they'll send back track. You don't even have to worry about these guys, them being a little less experienced. Um, there was a little more of like, I think almost with a few exceptions, almost everything that you hear, we did together here in the studio. There wasn't very much that was done at their homes that was actually used.
Mhm.
Uh, I just felt like one of those things that it's great, but I needed to be there, and cool, a little more, but I'm just so happy it turned out so great.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned you were the producer on this. This was recorded in your studio in Tennessee.
Yes.
But you didn't skimp. You went to Rich Mauser for mixing and mastering because I mean you got something that works. You don't mess with it.
Well, yeah, I wanted it. It just seemed like it would be a really great album for Rich to work on. He did an amazing job, and yeah, Thomas Averhart did a great job on the artwork. I felt like I wanted this to have the best shot, the very best shot that it could have, to be something that would be very pleasing to the prog fans.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit on something here that's different from what Neal Morse fans normally hear. I mean, it's we'll talk about the tracks because there's only 5 of them, but it starts right away with Eternity in Your Eyes. I think the first several minutes of that sound like maybe vintage Neal Morse prog, but I think it takes a turn in the middle of this thing and it comes off in a direction that we're not hearing from you. And then of course Thief is something that's unlike anything that you've put out before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think what you're hearing is, the elements that the other guys brought in. The Northern Lights section is Chris Riley, was from one of Chris Riley's demos.
Mm.
And I think we actually played to his demo. And then then we go into that extended wah wah guitar solo thing. And then putting Johnny Basaha in singing the chorus and the quiet part. I think all of that stuff just gives it a different flavor. and and then coming back into Chris Riley's demo, his music, that's definitely his song, that Hammer and Nail song, and that whole jam thing and everything. That was all really based on his music. So I mean, I'm really glad to hear that it has a, that's what you want. You want to have a freshness and a
Yeah.
different flavor, and people not feeling like they've heard it all before.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about um, the title, "No Hill for a Climber." This is something that it comes from a Barbara Kingsolver novel, Demon Copperhead. How did that sort of work its way in? Is it lyrically connected?
Only that line.
Mm.
I was we got together for our first date, our first exploratory jam writing session in January, and then at the beginning of February, I went to Colorado to see my daughter and her husband. And uh, while I was flying out there, I was reading that book, and I just read that line and it just jumped out at me. I'm like, wow, what a cool line! I've never heard that before. Not being really sure what it means, And then I kept reading and I read it again, and I started singing it to myself, and the whole chorus of No Hill began to, I think I just sang it into my phone. I got up from my seat and I started walking on the plane singing No Hill for a Climber. Even some of the words, I think, were coming out. And then I sat back down and started reading the book again, and then I started hearing the theme after that, So I got back up and I started walking around on the plane again and singing that into my phone. So it was just an inspirational thing, but it's not that the song or the album is in any way really based on that book.
Mm. I have to imagine that it takes a certain mindset to not really worry about how people are reacting to this as you're doing this on the airplane.
Yeah, you got to be pretty free. You got to be free to be me, man. Uh, yeah, my wife was sitting with the kids because we couldn't all sit together for whatever reason. And she, at baggage, she said, "What was going on with you on the flight, man?" I thought, "How many times are you going to get up? What's the matter with you?" And I said, "Well, hey, if it's coming, it's coming." If I feel like something's really good, particularly, I'll try to duck out of whatever I'm doing and sing it in my phone, because I've found, in fact, I was at the tennis match. I was watching Alcaraz play up in Cincinnati, and there was some little cool, really simple song that started playing in my mind. And I thought, oh, I'll remember it. I'll remember it. When we left the match, I didn't remember it because I didn't want to leave and go do the thing. But you got to do it, because sometimes you'll lose things, and I'm kind of afraid of that. I really want to, if something I feel like is really good, man, I want to capture it.
Yeah, understandable. You just have to block everybody out. And I'm sure you were getting some looks, but it's more important to get it down.
Hey, I found out that this is not uncommon.
Oh yeah.
I was walking by the TV in the afternoon, and my wife was watching the Kelly Clarkson show, and she was talking to that great female jazz artist. What's her name? Anyway, they were talking about, and Kelly Clarkson says, "Yeah, I think most of my last album was written on an airplane."
Okay.
So I'm not alone.
There you go. You're in good company. So, how long did it take to put these songs together? You guys, you said you all got together in January. How long did it take from the first jam session where you said, "Yeah, I think there's something here," to putting this thing in a I guess in a zip file and sending it off to Rich?
That was really basically April 1st to May 15th.
Hmm.
We 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 were still moving things around. It was still taking shape, but I felt like we had enough to start by April 1st. And then, we were getting together in the mornings sometimes, and some of us were having powwows about reshaping some of the music. And yeah, so we wrote and recorded it in February and March, there was writing, and there were more of those jams and writing sessions going on. And then we started tracking in earnest in April.
Okay. When if you are the quote unquote old guy in the band, what's it like with all of this youthful energy around you all the time? Is it something that energizes you in a different way than working with like maybe Mike and Royna and Pete or the guys from Flying Colors?
It's all exciting to me, Flying Colors is very exciting. Every time I hear Steve, Dave, any of those guys play or Casey sing, I'm inspired. Uh, every group is its own, really unique kettle of fish, you might say, and so this was exciting. But these guys they're young, but they're pretty mellow guys. They're not like really hyper or anything like that. They're pretty mellow. Philip is a very mellow guy. Chris is too. Andre is very chill. Probably the guy who has the most energy is Johnny. Johnny's like real, hey man, yeah, this is great. When can we do it again? That kind of thing. He's very excitable, but it was very cool, very chill sessions,
Yeah.
But there was a freshness and an energy that was happening for sure.
So this thing is structured a lot like Spock's Beard 5, for example. You bookending the album with the two epics, and you've got some shorter songs in between. Doesn't sound like um, Spock's Beard, doesn't sound like Transatlantic, although there are moments of that because you're in here. But
Right.
it really is its own thing. And I was very impressed and very surprised at how different it sounded for having your name attached to it. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is the song "Thief," the second song, the first short one,
Yeah.
5 minutes. This thing has this interesting kind of King Crimson-y middle section, which is unlike anything that we've heard from one of your bands before. Where did that sort of come from? What was the genesis of that?
That came from Chris. That was Chris's thing.
Yeah.
That was something that he had actually brought into the Radiant School. If there's anybody out there that's listening that was at the Radiant School where Chris presented that, yeah, I was stuck on Thief. I didn't know where to go. I got up to that point, and I knew I wanted to do something really intense. I thought we were going to stay in that same kind of tempo. Da 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 da, da everything you do. Da, da, da. I was thinking of doing some instrumental like that, and I was stuck, and so I called Chris, and he came over on a Monday night, and I don't know if he suggested it or if I suggested it. I said, "What was that thing that you did that was so cool at the Radiant School?" And he sat down at the piano and played that figure. I'm like, "Let's try putting that in there." I'm like, yeah, I think that's going to work. I think that's cool, actually. Yeah. And then, we worked on that together, added the melodies above it. And then he left. And then the next day I was listening to it and I thought it was definitely the way to go, but I didn't know how to peak it out. It needed to peak out and then go back into Thief. Right.
Yeah.
And normally we would do some like blistering fiddly bit, right? That would be the typical thing that I would think of. But I was like, I've done that kind of a lot. What if we just have everybody just freak out? How like on the White Album, I mean not the White Album, on Sergeant Pepper's, they told the LA Philhar I mean not gosh, the London Philharmonic guys just do whatever they felt as long as they just all landed together. So they're just all just going, So I thought, what if we do that as a band? Just go nuts and all try to stop together. And so, well, obviously that's what we did. But anyway, that's one of my favorite moments on the album.
Yeah. The middle song, "All the Rage," has the great trading vocals part with you and Johnny. And I was interested to know if you had recorded those things in the same booth. Did you record them together or did you record them separately?
We recorded them all here, but we did record them separately. I had done a whole vocal on the song, and after Johnny came in, it was actually my friend Jeff Bailey's idea. He's like, this sounds like it's going to be the first single, and Johnny's singing, Ever Interceding and a bunch of stuff on No Hill. It's going to be a big thing for people. Neal's got a singer. What's happening? So you definitely, he was like, what if you have him sing the second verse and the second chorus, and then and then I already knew I wanted him to sing the upper harmony, but I have to give credit to Jeff for that idea. And I guess I wasn't sure because I liked my vocal on the second verse, but I had Johnny do it, and then I thought, yeah, this is wisdom. This is the way it should be.
I always feel like it's a treat when you have bands that have multiple singers that can all sing, and they get to display that in the same song. You guys do that with, you did it in Spock's Beard with Nick. You got Neal Morse band. You've got several other people that lend a hand, and same with Transatlantic. So I always feel like that's a positive to bring to a song. It gives you something a little bit unexpected.
Yeah, well, I think people like us that were, really children of the 70s mainly, uh, that's what we're used to. I mean, I'm just kind of doing what I've always really liked and what I'm used to. I'm used to hearing another voice coming in. Even on Chicago's early hits,
Yeah.
heaven knows and Lord it shows. What the
Yeah.
one guy, and then Cetera comes in on the bridge, and
Yeah.
I and the Beatles were always doing that. Hard Day's Night, they McCartney sings the bridge, and I've always really loved that. It just keeps your ear interested.
Indeed. The only song I thought felt like it could have come from one of your other projects was Ever Interceding, because this is a song that you wrote, but to me it sounds like it could have been a DiVirgilio Morrison Jennings song.
They could have been, actually. Yeah. Well, it just came to me one morning. I just came in here and wrote that, and then I was thinking, obviously, I wanted to keep it in D, and then that meant I couldn't sing it.
Mm.
So to me, it fit. Like whoever the mystery person was that we were going to get to sing the high parts in No Hill, obviously would sing all of Ever Interceding, and so I think it's great that Johnny is featured so much on the album.
Yeah, it really does get. I mean, you're the veteran, but you give these guys all their opportunities to shine, and I think that that's one of the strengths of this record is that they do all have those opportunities to show what they can do.
Yeah.
And of course, the big epic at the end, No Hill for a Climber, the title track. You wrote this with Chris and Andre,
Oh,
and
yes.
this thing is again another one that's quite different than some of the stuff that you've done. It sounds different than what you've done before, and I was interested in finding out from you about the sort of the false ending at the end, where it comes back after some silence and comes into this like hidden classical type music at the end.
Oh, that was Andre's idea. Um, Andre and I particularly, all of us to some degree, but Andre and I particularly are really into. We go to the symphony hall a lot. We listen to a lot of classical music. Andre writes classical music. He's a music teacher as well as a guitar player, and he was the one like, oh, dude, at the end you got to have one of those big sections, where if you were in the symphony hall, the horn section would stand up and super slow. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So yeah, that was Andre's thing.
Great. This is available as a limited 2 CD digipack, including a second disc of instrumentals. It's a standard CD as well in a jewel case, a gatefold 2 LP, and digital. Is your Radiant site, is that the best place for people to buy this?
Yeah, sure. Or nealmorse.com is
Yeah.
also the same. It's the same site.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the best for me.
Well, that's we like to support the artists on this show.
uh,
What was the hardest thing about this record? Was there a moment that you just couldn't figure out how to get back to something, or
hold
something
on
that
one
gave you?
second.
Sure.
Sorry, it this thing has a mind of its own.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, was there one moment on this record where you just weren't able to find your way back from point A to a point B, or was there a difficult moment on this record where you didn't think that you were going to be able to find that way back, and or maybe it was a lyric you were stuck on? Was there anything that really uh, was a moment where you just kind of had to maybe step away and then come back and look at it from a new angle?
Well, I was stuck on Thief. I remember that. I had the beginning and then the sort of Pink Floydy next section, and I was stuck on that. There were quite a few things as I listened down to the first draft of No Hill for a Climber. I felt like, oh, it needed more space. A lot of what I wound up doing, in my morning hours, or when I was just listening to it and trying things, a lot of times I'll save as, and then I'll say, I'll put the date and say Neal trying edits or something, and I'll put a splice. I'll select all the tracks, put a splice, move something way out in the back, and then try something. It took me quite a while to find what I think turned out so beautiful. The soft middle of No Hill, that 3-part harmony part, and Johnny sounds so great on it, and the way it comes into that all is love, love is all. I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of a
Oh, no problem.
cold today, but finding that took some time, and it was quite a discovery. And I kept stretching it out and stretching it out, and it was still not enough. Like, how long does that need to be? So you're just looking for the feeling. That's what anytime you're working on music, there's something that you're feeling, and you're trying to realize that feeling. And sometimes you really get there. Sometimes you feel like, well, I guess that's it. I got to move on.
On the flip side of that, is there anything from this record that just fell together so easily for you?
Yeah, I would say that All the Rage fell together really easily. Um, Ever Interceding also. But those were basically just songs that I wrote maybe in an hour or two in the morning, and then I not so much. All the Rage was different, but there was more to All the Rage. But Ever Interceding was something that I wrote in the morning, and then I brought to the band, and and then we just played it together in the room, and it's just really cool. It was just it was just a really good feeling in the sessions and good vibes.
Mm. Now, knowing your busy schedule, this is a band, obviously. Are there live dates planned for this band?
Not at this time. I've been making this album over the summer with Chester Thompson that'll be released in the spring of next year, I believe. I hope, I trust. And then I've got these 3 Morse fests where we're doing both Joseph albums with horns and strings and all the bells and whistles, and that doesn't end till January. So I'm gonna kind of take those steps and then pray and see what I feel like I should do next.
Yeah. What can you tell me about the I know you probably don't want to give too many spoilers away about the Chester Thompson project.
I think you're really gonna like it. It's got some long pieces. It as also has myself and Phil Kagi
Oh,
tra-
nice.
trading some vocals, and he's playing a lot of really cool guitar on it. It's a little more groove oriented than some of my other stuff. Is a little more on the rock side. This might be a little more on the groove side, you might say,
Mm,
which I think will really appeal to some people anyway.
yeah.
And yeah, I think it's great. You're gonna love it.
All right, great. I have always enjoyed that inner circle stuff that you put out with Phil. I think you and Phil work really well together, and I'm interested to hear how that sounds. So that's
Yeah.
something to look forward to. Neal
Yes.
Morse and the Resonance is the new band. You get a new debut album. No Hill for a Climber comes out November 8th on Inside Out Music. Neal, I hope this does really well for you, and I hope you are able to get these young pups out on the road and test this material in front of an audience.
We'll see what happens, brother. Thank you so much. Thanks for the chat.